Welcome back to the Star Trek Critic, where each episode is graded like a school project, starting with 100 points, taking 1 point away for each error, and I leave snarky commentary like I know more than they do, which I do. Today's episode is The Host. A Trill is going to negotiate peace between the people of two different moons. The first point is lost because this Trill doesn't look at all like this Trill. As far as I'm concerned, they are from two completely separate planets that have nothing to do with each other. The next point is lost because how does Starfleet not know he's a Trill? They do terrible research, don't they? If you can do this, you should know what's inside of him. I'm pretty sure Data knows what's going on between them. He's too smart. Also, Odon's been on the ship for several weeks now. Data's thinking, oh good, they're at it again. Maybe I should tell her I know what they're doing. However, I'm going to have to take another point since it seems this event takes place after hours, and Data would have waited until the next day. An interesting point about this episode, Gates McFadden was 7 months pregnant during filming. However, we get to see Odon's baby bump instead. You never really learn what's going on here. He could be just doing it to get high. This scene implies that it's the next morning, and this line implies that he's been on the ship for at least 10 days. Now my question is, with how much bumping and grinding they've done in 10 days, how does she not know there is something odd about his stomach? All the way through this episode, they blame the first baseman. Beverly is thinking how great it is now that Wesley is in Starfleet Academy. This is the stereotypical captain interfering with the love scene. Look close, the Enterprise has arrived at Pale-Arzel, the planet with two quarreling moons. My question here is, how do actors with that type of prosthetic makeup not go cross-eyed? And anytime two people come in through two different doors, it means they had sex. This is Deanna's way of saying, I know you had sex and want all the details. Look close, the stars are not moving, and now they are, so -1 point. Here's some foreshadowing. The ambassador knew Odon's father, which in real life was Odon. They don't know he was a Trill either. They really keep it a secret. This is Data's way of saying, I know you had sex too. This is Governor Lekka. As far as she's concerned, the kids are fighting. Now she says 5 centuries, but is that 500 Earth years or 500 of their years? We will never know. The people of the planet have no negotiating skills. They hide that by saying, we just don't take sides. So they have to get an outside party to do the negotiating for them. -1 point for Alpha Moon not having a name. You'd think they'd come up with a name after 500 years. Even our moon has a name. It's called Luna. -1 point for Beta Moon not having a name of its own. Seriously, Star Trek writers, you can do better. This graphic clearly shows Alpha Moon doesn't give a rat's ass what happens to the people of Beta Moon. I'll be blunt, Alpha Moon is wrong. All they have to do is turn off the switch when Beta Moon passes by. It's that simple. She says both sides are arming for war. I wouldn't be surprised if they want this war. Obviously, Captain Picard didn't look out his window. They're already around Pale-Arzel, so -1 point. Picard says, let's use the transporter. Odon says, no, I have a phobia of transporters just like Dr. McCoy. Another point lost here. The Trill Odon has been an ambassador for decades. They would know that he cannot beam down. Now Picard wants to shuttle down. That's weird. And Deanna would have figured it out, so -1 point. Odon has been on the Enterprise for at least 10 days, and they have known the ambassador Odon for decades. How does she know it's Deanna? Then Deanna asked, is that Palmolive you're soaking your hands in? Beverly says, yes, of course it is. Since 300 years in the future, women still wash dishes by hand. I've been telling you for years, this show is sexist. Of course, you never learn what Colganite astringent really is. This line can be taken in so many different ways. I don't think women really talk like this in the real world. I got the impression that this scene was written by male writers who think women talk like this. It would have been better to have those two make up their own lines. Are they talking about the second baseman or saying Odon got to second base? Deanna says, Odon's been on the ship for 10 days and I still haven't figured him out. It's like he thinks through his stomach. Beverly says, you know what I like about him? His baby bump is bigger than mine. So does this count as a Picard maneuver? Picard says, Odon, how will you proceed down there? Odon says, oh, I just wing it. Picard's like, well, that won't help me in my future plans of being an ambassador at all. Then Odon says, After the negotiations, I want to take Dr. Beverly with me. Picard's like, good, then Wesley can call you Dad. But don't you think you should tell her about that slug in your gut first? As usual, an extra always crosses when they open doors, and this time is on both sides of the door. Geordi says, I only have 2 lines in this episode, so -1 point. Odon says, I love you. Beverly says, I know. Odon says, I looked up Earth customs, and this flower is to represent that I'm hiding something from you. The next point is lost because Odon would have a big staff that goes with him everywhere. And as usual, as soon as the shuttle gets clear of the Enterprise, they're attacked.
A typical prod.
The next point is lost for the first officer flying the shuttlecraft and not a pilot. Seriously, the ship has a crew of 1,000, but only 7 people do all the work. In a universe where they use transporter technology practically religiously, the first thing you should tell them is that you can't use it. As usual, in a medical emergency, they have that critical patient in the middle of sickbay for all to see, so -1 point. Fun fact, unlike technobabble, these 2 terms are real. Beverly learns, damn, in those 10 days of sex, I got him pregnant, which she quickly blames on the second baseman, of course. Odon admits to being a parasite. Beverly says, wait a minute, didn't we fight a parasite like you in the first season? They inhabit someone else's body and just push their consciousness aside. Odon says, yeah, we do that too, but we're good parasites. And we're really good at sex too, didn't you notice? And this is Beverly's response at having sex with a slug. This is why a Trill ambassador should always travel with a staff. You never know when you're going to need a spare body. When you see them in the conference room, do you ever think, who's flying the ship? So, who is going to trust an ambassador from a planet that's been keeping this type of a secret from everyone for hundreds of years? Now comes the timeline problem. The Trill can send a replacement in 40 hours, that's a day and a half, but Odon's symbiont can only last another 1 to 2 hours. So why doesn't the Enterprise zoom off to the Trill planet? They could get there a lot faster, so -1 point. And again, they blame all this on the first baseman. The next point is lost for Riker even offering his body as a human host. It could kill him. I know this is a plot, but it's a bad idea. Both Picard and Crusher are here saying, this is a stupid idea, maybe we shouldn't do it. 1 point lost for Picard not saying, no, you can't do this. Riker's thinking, if Odon's in me, I'll get to score with Beverly. Picard says, it's your body, your choice. And again, a serious surgery is going on in the middle of sickbay where anybody can walk in and see, so -1 point. Beverly quotes the Vulcan computer.
How do you feel?
Thousands of years ago, how did anyone on the Trill planet figure out how to connect this with a humanoid host? Now Beverly says Riker's turning into a Borg. The surgery is successful, and Odon lets her know it's him by calling her Dr. Beverly, which totally freaks her out, of course. The people of the moons and the planet are going to have a tough time believing Riker is now Odon. It would have been better for them to go to the Trill planet for a replacement. And why is it the governor's job to convince them that he's Odon? They can get a replacement in 40 hours, less if they go to the Trill planet. That's only a day and a half. The negotiations can wait a little bit longer, that's all. Turns out the people of this planet don't follow the teachings of Yoda either. Odon tells the governor to act like Teddy Roosevelt. This is a visual sign that the transfer was a terrible idea.
So what is Riker thinking right now, because his consciousness is just pushed aside? Probably that at warp 9.7 the Enterprise could have gotten to the Trill planet in about 20 minutes. Odon says, let's talk about fooling around with Riker's body. Beverly says, you aren't who you say you are. And this is just a weak line of Odon. What an asshole. I do feel sorry for Beverly right now. She must really be flipping out. His philosophy is, the first baseman loved her, so she should love him as well. Now he goes on some boring love poetry, and Beverly's thinking, I should have kept him in that jar. Deanna joins Beverly and 10 Forge for some really juicy gossip. Beverly's drink is orange, and now it's red, so -1 point, or else she's just really downing him. Beverly talks about when she had a crush on an older man. This is a better conversation they're having, much better than the one they had in the beauty salon. She says, I feel his pull. That's what it's called in the 24th century. It's very powerful. That's why she liked him. Now she blames it all on the shortstop. I think this is the only time Deanna ever really talks about her father. Beverly says, I never will. This is bad English. It should be, I never Riker. It's really stupid of Odon to go into 10 forward when he's as weak as he is. He should be in bed. But of course, Star Trek has to have his drama. Then Deanna says, you should try him out and see how good he is in the sack. And let's see if Will Riker actually remembers once this is all over.
According to these stardates, about 16 hours have passed from the first scene. That's not enough time for everything that's happened, so -1 point. He says it's getting higher and higher every time I read it. What the heck is he reading? And if he thinks stalling the representatives will be seen as a deception, how is putting him in another body going to help? Picard is so upset he calls Riker Shirley.
And don't call me Shirley.
Odon in Riker's body now performs the Picard maneuver. Odon is able to sweet talk them into believing he is the real Odon, but they are still a little skeptic, and I'm not surprised. This ambassador is talking about his mother-in-law. And does he honestly think he's going to be able to survive another 8 hours? I think he's going to be dead by then. Once they leave, Odon is relieved he can finally let out that big fart he was holding in for the entire conference. According to Beverly, this is a terrible idea and they should have flown to the Trill planet at warp 9.7 for a replacement. 1 point lost for Picard wanting to talk to Odon in the ready room instead of just right there in sickbay. Odon can't move. Look at this. He's laying there in sickbay, barely able to move in somebody else's body. But he's able to sneak out to make out with Beverly, and Odon knows he shouldn't, so -1 point. Does this rose make you think that this is a Beauty and the Beast type episode? The new host is expected to arrive in 18 hours. Is that in addition to the 40 hours, or that is part of the 40 hours? We never find out. Now Beverly goes to Odon's place. She wants to give him an injection. Again, the timeline is messy here. He's talking about the meeting tomorrow. How much time has passed? So, -1 more point. Seriously, Odon is just a horn dog. He is in no condition to have Beverly right now. According to the stardate, only 8 hours have passed even though it's the next day, so -1 more point. Picard and Beverly thinking, damn, you look like shit, maybe we shouldn't have done this. But Odon says, the show must go on. Picard is thinking, the pain may be so intense I might have to put him out of his misery. And now Picard tries to make his move on Dr. Crusher. This is really bad timing for him. Picard asks what time it is, and as far as I can tell, they have already hit their 40 hours. And now Worf says the Trill ship won't be here for another 9. Jonathan Frakes gets to perform a dying scene, but at least he's conscious enough to put his hand out to block his fall. Now they're going to meet the Trill ship and travel at warp 9. They'll get to it in 2 hours. They should have done that before all this nonsense began. Picard is thinking, I wonder what those things taste like. She says he's in stasis, but he's still moving pretty rapidly. Picard says, I love you. Beverly says, I know. This is a good time for them to discuss how often they come upon joined species and never knew about it. The new Trill host has absolutely no personality. No wonder they take over their bodies. Poor Beverly's thinking, well, shit, it's a woman. 1 point lost for reused footage, 1 point lost for using somebody else's ship. Odon tries to make her move on Beverly, but Beverly says, I just don't swing that way. Odon says, come on, live a little. Imagine what it would do for the ratings for this show. However, this show was made in the 1990s. If it was made in the 2010s, they would have been on the table right now. This actually conflicts with the Deep Space Nine version of the Trill. They had an episode where Jadzia Dax couldn't do anything with this descendant of a previous Trill. It was taboo on their planet. Of course, Odon is a total horn dog. He probably doesn't care about those policies. Odon leaves, and Beverly's thinking, man, I missed out on some really good lesbian sex, didn't I? And they never asked Riker if he remembered anything. Frank Luce played the dentist in a stage production of Little Shop of Horrors. He was also on the A-Team, Ryan's Hope, and Free Spirit. William Newman has 72 screen credits to his name, including Brubaker, The Mosquito Coast, and Mrs. Doubtfire. Nicole Orith Pallavicini, or is it Pallavicini, has 42 screen credits, including One Life to Live, All My Children, and Jake and the Fat Man. Barbara Tarbuck has 104 screen credits, including The Incredible Hulk, MASH, Quantum Leap, and will be back again on Star Trek Enterprise. Robert Harper played Lethal Blind with 63 credits, including Philly, LA Law, and Wise Guy. Sadly, Patty Yasutake left us last year at the age of 70. She made 16 appearances on The Next Generation as Nurse Ogawa, and 2 more in the movies, and has 60 more screen credits, including TJ Hooker, Gung Ho, and Boston Legal. She will be missed. The Host, where you're introduced to a joined species, gets a score of 75. Thanks for viewing. Be sure to leave comments below, click that like button, the share button, that subscribe button, and I'll see you again soon.